Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be looking at Azure Sentinel today, and delivering the content will be one of our cloud solutions specialists here at Bytes, Andy Watts, and he'll be running through the duration of the webinar for you. But before handing over to him, I'm just going to run through some very quick housekeeping. During the webinar, you will be muted, but you can submit questions at any time via the questions box on the right-hand side of the screen. If there are any questions, we'll just have some short time at the end just to read a couple of those out. The webinar recording will be made available to you later today or tomorrow, and there will be a critique form that will just pop up at the end, and we really do appreciate your feedback on these type of sessions. So if you could just take a moment to fill that in, then that would be really great. Without further ado, I'm now going to pass you over to Andy. There are any like sort of audio glitches or technical things, that you can't see the screen or the slides aren't moving or something, just let us know, pop something in the questions box and we can have a look.
Hello there, welcome everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep, all good.
Yep. So we're here to talk about watching over your infrastructure. Hopefully you guys have heard about Azure Sentinel and what it's actually capable of delivering. It's Microsoft's Siemens sort tool, expanding the capabilities to manage and look at your environments, whether they be on-premise or whether they be in any of the multiple public cloud solutions. We look at the estates that are available now, and everyone has more data that is flowing into their environments, with a 76% increase in security data that is flowing in. Of that, the sophistication of those security threats that are coming in and being monitored are drastically improving. And that for security professionals and IT professionals alike means we have to put a lot more effort into managing those. At present, we're assessing that only 44% of alerts are actually going unnoticed. So 55% of the capability of your staff is being utilized properly, but 44%, that's quite a large margin. Nearly half of the alerts are never getting investigated at all. Mainly that's because of resource. The current stats that came out of ESG was that 3.5 million unfilled security drops globally. So that's the resource detriment we're currently sitting there. So we need to put solutions in place that are actually going to surface that sort of requirement. So looking at Azure Sentinel and what it's actually providing it with, so it gives you that instant value capability directly into your environment. So those security personnel, IT administrators, are getting the information they need when they need it. It also scales up to your entire estate. We're not talking about it sitting there connecting up to a single environment. It will go and it will expand with your estate as you increase it. And certainly we know as we start moving into public cloud environments that things do scale out quite considerably. Now, the great thing about it is because it is public cloud based, it's utilizing AI and automation and machine learning capabilities to give you that capability to improve your effectiveness, improve the stats up so that you don't miss those 44% anymore, that you actually capture all of that data and manage to react on it, even if it's not physically you reacting, and it could be running via rules from a service via like Azure Sentinel. So Sentinel provides you with that end-to-end solution. Firstly, it collects all the data from a number of different sources, however that happens to be. They provide a myriad of different connectors available to you that automatically hook into the Microsoft scenario and or any of the other systems that you have available. If it has an API available to pull the logs from it, Sentinel will connect to it. Once it's collected that data, It can have a number of rules and analytics-based machine learning capabilities to search through that data automatically for you and analyze flows. And that could be around security, which is obviously our main concerns, but also providing trend analysis on what's happening in your estate. So it could be pulling other details out that could be suspiciously valuable for you as an organization. Now, if we are looking for something that has gone wrong, the hunting capabilities and the ability to timeline out an attack from the first instance right the way to when it's actually coming to its fruition, you've noticed it and having to actually work on that. So it bounds those up into incidents that you can fully investigate, pull offline, take the detail away, put it into other tools, and respond to that. Now, those could be automated responses, or they could be responses that are manually kicked off from your perspective. So during the course of this webinar, we're going to look at the 10 short steps in how you can potentially modernize your SIEM environment. First look at is visibility. So how are we actually looking at that data? How are we monitoring what that data is and where it's coming from? Collecting your security, very simple to do. Microsoft provides you with a number of connectors and capabilities that are simple as a couple of clicks to interconnect into it. To give you an example, firing up the Azure Sentinel tool, which you can very easily do now if you needed to, gives you the opportunity to create a workbook which connects to a directory that you're automatically connected to. So that directory is obviously that tenant connecting to things like Office 365, Azure AD, Dynamics 365, or any of the Azure resources you've currently got involved in your environment. That will pull all the data into Azure Sentinel. Now that's all being stored within inside the log analytics and be monitored within inside that platform. Log analytics is available at scale and has been specifically designed to deal with the sheer volume of data that comes out of a SaaS platform, like, for instance, Office 365. There will be, if you talk about a standard organization of, let's say, 400 users, the volume of data that's coming down enables the cloud capabilities within inside Azure Sentinel to stretch and expand and to be able to analyze every single element that's coming in there. We look at how many sort of signals coming through a little bit later in this webinar. It's looking at pulling data directly from APIs, as I suggested. So there are a number of connectors available immediately. But if your specific solution that is not available there, as long as you can get to an API, you can pull those custom logs from that environment and then analyze them. We use work groups to power these dashboards. Now, something to say as well, just before Christmas, they came out with a mapping tool as well, so you can have a Geo Mapping. That's available natively inside the workbooks. So you get that rich visualization, not dissimilar to you may have seen in Power BI. So you can get that rich capabilities to delve into those incidents as they come up, or giving you better insight into those data sources as they're moving through. Maybe you're getting not the right sort of data coming through that you expect, but it gives you that capability to delve straight into them and move forward with that data. Now the connectors are turning up almost on a weekly basis at the moment. The big names are all in there. These were ones that were announced in November last year. Was Barracuda, the firewalls are coming in, the F5 firewalls, the F5 traffic management data is coming in, Trend Micro are pulling their data in. The ability to integrate, which I know is quite important to some of the customers I've spoken to recently, into taxi servers. Only those ones, I'm afraid, that are supporting the sticks format. But those are the interconnections that you can come from. So just got a little bit of a question for you guys, and Cassie's going to bring up the answers next to me, and so I can actually see what they are. So question: data can you ingest into Azure Sentinel at zero cost, at no cost whatsoever? I'll give you a second to see who can come up with an answer.
Yeah, if anyone does know the answer, if you just want to pop it into the questions box, and I can read it out.
We got anyone typing?
Yes, we've got one person that said Office 365.
Yes, thank you very much. So someone responded. Someone's still awake out there.
Someone's listening.
Yes, someone's listening to me. I'm not talking into the void of space. Yes. So Office 365 activity logs, alerts from Microsoft Threat Protection, data out of Azure AD, the Azure activity logs, all of that is available at no additional cost into the Azure Sentinel space. So that's pulling that data in there. So if you've got those 365 environments straight away, it's a great thing to hook up and start utilizing Azure Sentinel to get some more insight about what's happening. You may be looking at those threat protection capabilities, but do you want to stick automation around it? You probably do. You want to react quickly, but maybe your staff aren't 24/7. Things could be happening at night when you're not around. Those are the things that potentially could aid your environment and potentially save money even, by meaning that your staff don't have to be concentrating on it full time. So the next thing to look at is analytics, and how can we leverage those analytics? Microsoft are building, well, at the moment they've got 100 plus built-in analytics rules that are available to you to kick off. And they are very, very simple to put in place. You literally just, as you can see on the screenshot I put up in front of you, you literally just click on create a rule, attach it to one thing there, and off you go. You can customize these rules that are available as defaults, or alternatively, you can build your own rules from scratch. So you've got that capability, and you can build templates. So if you want to reuse those rules in other workbooks that are connected to different environments, you can write you can write those rules once and copy and paste them into other environments. So those rule templates capabilities are quite keen. Key thing in here is that you can actually pull those events with your threat intelligence with the Microsoft URL intelligence capabilities. So they're pulling together not just your intelligence and what you're seeing inside your environment, but also what's happening out there in the wider environment. So the Microsoft's ML capabilities, the machine learning capabilities, will be able to aid you in protecting your estate without the additional hassle of having to go out, pull data in from other sources to say, oh, what's been happening? Has this threat been recognized before? Microsoft's got it there straight away, injected into your environment, ready for you to utilize. On the back end of that, with those rules, you can trigger automated playbooks. So Playbooks, if you've seen Power Automate or Flow as it used to be called inside Office 365, that's what you're getting from there. And it's very graphical and very simple to actually build. I think we've got a section on it in a bit to build those playbooks. But it means that you can automate the responses to certain things. So if it's a very simple one that you've seen regularly, you can have manually dealt with it initially, but after a while you've got a way that, oh, this trigger needs to be dealt with in this particular way. We'll write a playbook for it, and then we can leave it for machine learning to take care of and look after for us. So as I was saying earlier, we need to look at machine learning as a major benefit for us. You don't have to worry about knowing about machine learning, understanding quantum computing and how it functions. No, you don't need to worry about this sort of stuff. Microsoft's taking care of all that work for you, and it has a number of models available just to put into place. So if we look at this inverse graph on the right-hand side, when we're pulling data in, we're fusing that data together, and we're looking at billions of activities coming in to the Azure Sentinel environment. But hey, not all those activities are actually anomalous. So we're looking at those activities down there, and we're talking about millions of anomalies that need to be assessed. Well, yeah, okay, there may be anomalies there, but are they actually threats to your environment? Not necessarily. So with machine learning and the graph-powered interactions into the APIs, they can actually look at it. And you now have boiled this down in this example to just a few hundred suspect candidates for threats. And then with an additional analysis over the top of that, you've boiled it down to just 90 high severity threats that you may actually physically have to deal with, or alternatively, you could have automated scripts so you only get a report when you come in the morning to state that, hey, those incidents have been dealt with, and you've got several more. Alternatively, as part of those playbooks that you've set up as a default one, you can say an incident's come in that you've never had before and we need you to help with. And that could have sent off a text to your phone or to your security team, or an email has gone out, or alerts have gone out in some way, shape or form that these people can actually work with. Now, Microsoft is allowing you to build your own machine learning models. That will be coming soon. It's currently in private preview. It will be coming over to public preview and general availability very shortly. Now, I have got another query coming up, another question for you to answer, and let's see if you know this. It's just in testing which you've actually looked at so far. So Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center names the activity groups after what? Let's see who can come up with that answer. We'll give you a couple of minutes. Type it into Google. It's much better when I do this face to face because people can't Google it.
No answers. No answers.
No answers. It is a harder one. It's a harder one. Okay,
Yeah.
then I'll give you the answer. They name them after elements of the periodic table. It was a recent blog post, as you can see on screen now, and they highlighted by phosphorus to target users to relate to the US presidential campaign. I thought that was quite funny, but nevertheless, so elements of the periodic table are being used to name those activity groups. As we know, we've got quite a few there, and that's how they are pulling together. Did anyone answer before I actually spoke, Cassie? No?
Nope, no one knew that one.
Might try to be a bit nicer on the next one. So hunting, looking over your security data with query languages. So might put in a number of threat detecting hunting queries that are available for you to utilize straight away. Yet again, you can customize those queries and make them nice and simple to utilize yourself, or alternatively create your own if you are relatively good with the KQL query type. You can create those and you can integrate those into the investigations that you're actually running. So it could be something that you need to delve down a little bit deeper that for some reason that ML hasn't picked up, or maybe you have some physical data that actually may aid you in discovering the source of the threat. So you may have visibility of someone's movements, for instance, that would not have been picked up inside the digital logging records, which you can then place into there and say, well, actually, this guy was in Peru at that point in time. What were they doing and why were they there? Well, we're aware of what they were trying to do and why they were there. So that actually helps us. So we can actually negate some of those things, or maybe we need to drill in a little bit longer. So you need to write a hunting resource to actually do this. Now, a great thing is once you find a piece of data, well, you don't want to lose it. I know personally, it's quite hard to keep a track when I'm hunting down for a specific security SKU. And if I can't find it, again, I have to start my process all over again. And I have to use the machine learning to bring up the same data, which could take a time that I rarely have. So Microsoft have the ability to use bookmarks and the ability as well to live stream those hunts in order to be able to get that threat data live. So you could be putting that data up on a board within inside your security center, so that data is constantly flowing through, and you can see everything that's happening with those particular environments. Maybe even changing them to traffic light system with color coding, that sort of thing can be pulled through. Now that live stream can also be pulled directly from the API and placed into other other views if you need to. Now, I don't know whether any of you have heard of Jupyter Note, quite key and aware with inside those of us who work in the security world. So Jupyter Notebooks, you can actually build yourself. As you can see, there's an example up here with a graphical example as well. So you can run them in Azure Cloud. You can share, save those as a shareable JSON template or HTML template if you like, which enables you to query that Sentinel data. So you've got the Sentinel data available. There's a huge pool of data. You can pull that out using the Jupyter Notebooks to get to the bottom of some other issues that you may have. So taking that example where you have maybe some external information from another source that's not connected to Sentinel, you can pull that data through. And the great thing is it's open to a number of different language options. So whether it happens to be SQL, Python, R, whatever you happen to be using. So I've got another little question for you now. Let's see how you like all that one. Where can you find and share hunting queries for Azure Sentinel? Now, this is quite a good question because it actually expands to where can you find details, and this is a bit of a clue, details for pretty much anything specialized in Microsoft nowadays. If you're looking for scripting or books or anything else, what are you looking for and where do you look? Go on, Cassie, do you have an answer?
We do have an answer. Someone asked, is it GitHub?
Yes, it's GitHub, which, whether you know, Microsoft bought a few years ago. And now they put all of their functions, queries, notebooks, analytics rules, including new data collectors that people have built. So Microsoft's engineers, as they build things for people, will put the outputs from those work streams into GitHub. Other collaborative people inside the whole Microsoft utilization community will be putting their results as freely available resources in the GitHub environment. It means that we've got somewhere to go get the data and utilize it. If I'm ever needing a new script or a new query to run or a new function that I want to do, maybe a playbook or a connectors, classic one, first thing I do, search on GitHub. It saves me so much time now. I don't even bother now Googling it. I will literally go directly to GitHub and search within it, purely because that's where the data is going to sit. If anyone's going to do it, they're going to put it there. And that's the same for development sources as well, if you're doing any developing. Quick drink. Next thing to look at, incidents. How do we deal with them? What do we do with them? So you have the ability inside Sentinel, as I sort of briefed over initially, to track those investigations, to use the incidents to collect together all the relevant data and potentially assign details to individuals. Now, that's something that's quite key to be able to do, assuming you have a reasonable team at your disposal, or maybe you don't. But you could have some support people that have certain skills and certain capabilities. You may want to give them some work to do. So you can assign them the job of finding out that person or tracking down HR to talk to that someone, or a number of different tasks they could be just drilling into, or just read these logs to make sure it actually makes sense to you and does it work with anything else. You can tag and comment on the incidents as you go through, and you can use the incident to trigger yet again to trigger playbooks in the background. And that's quite key to be able to trigger those playbooks to actually get that process flows going in the background. Whether that process flow actually just leads to alerting someone, or to get authorization from someone, or to put it out to external to inform a manager or something else, and it doesn't actually physically do anything to the environment, that's one route it can take. Or alternatively, it could be making changes to your environment to shore things up. It could be making anything that is scriptable via an API interface. And that can be changing firewall rules, that could be locking out accounts. There's a number of different things that you could potentially do on that point. provide you with that visualization of the entire attack profile. So you can see the scope and then potentially the impact and where it's been. So you can see how that attack has actually happened, and ML in the background has pulled that data together. So everything that has possibly happened in that brief timeline that we had from the billions of results that have come in previously, ML along with Sentinel have pieced together the complete timeline of everything that has happened, linking in the bookmarks that maybe you've made, and you can see whether there's any serious issues with the estate or anything that's potentially going to interlink and cause problems in future. So that deeper capability of delving into those potential worrying areas is quite critical. I think now moving forward, we need to act on those, and that's where the automation is going to help you, because the automation is going to take care of the bulk of the work for you, and you then have time to look at the far-reaching complexities around your estate. So automated detonation, I'll get my words right in a minute. Automated detonation is a great thing that can come in as well. So for things like URLs that are coming through, so from in this instance, we're looking at Palo Alto. When it's looking at those URLs as they're coming through, we can see, and Microsoft are capable of detonating that in the background to see what happens. We've got alerting and screenshots that can get pulled through. So when phishing sites, that's the classic one. When they pull those details through, we can see immediately that we've got, this is the link, this is where it's going, this is the problems you're having. All that information is passed back to you straight away from in this case, an appliance that is sitting in an on-premise environment, or it could be a system that's sitting inside Azure, or it could be sitting inside AWS, for instance, or it could be from an Office 365 environment. So it's keen to know that you actually have this capability sitting in the background that you can utilize, certainly around the 365 elements, to actually get deeper understanding of what's being utilized and what's being done. I have another question. Well, it's a question. It's fill the blanks. From John Lambert from the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center. Basically says, defenders thinking what, but attackers thinking what? Just so you have an idea of what they do. Has anyone answered?
Not at the moment.
I'm expecting the guy who answered GitHub to do this one. No pressure, whoever that was.
Yeah.
The answers? No?
No answers. No, not
okay,
on that one.
So defenders thinking lists and attackers thinking graphs. That we'll look at in a minute. When we look at automation and orchestration, utilizing the security operations in Logic Apps. So as you can see on the Logic Apps designer, and getting those playbooks built for you, as I was talking about earlier, it's very simple, it's very graphical now. So you don't need to be a hardcore coder to build a playbook anymore. You can utilize the designer, the GUI interface, to be able to put these things together. Now, it's previously been something that people have shied away from, the automation side of things, because they've gone, well, we're not able to do this. Well, with the advent of things like GitHub to provide you with a vast repository of capability and samples there available for, Microsoft have already built in, I think it's 250 odd connectors at the moment, and that's just ever expanding into obviously the Azure, the Office 365, anything the Microsoft systems, they've got connectors for, but they're also building these into, in the example up here, it's Palo Alto. So, and they're actually putting, in this particular example you can see up on screen here, they're actually changing a firewall rule and blocking an IP address utilizing the Palo Altos. So that's putting something into an external system, and because the connectors are there. Now it's also interconnecting with ServiceNow. So it's created a ServiceNow instance. So for instance, if your organization is using ServiceNow for their service desk and to do it, it's actually creating a log of the event and automating the entirety for you. And that's how it's building together. So it can be triggering these playbooks from anything, from an alert, from an investigation, from anything that's happening with inside it. Anything that's triggerable will come in here, and then you can have that playbook running. The awesome thing is that there are a lot of these pre-made for you, and they're fully scalable. So it doesn't matter how many times this is running. We saw an example where Microsoft, when I was doing a webinar not dissimilar to this with the guys from Redmond, and they actually ran a simulation for us. So they threw nearly 1 million, I think it was 900 and something odd thousand requests at the environment, and every single one of those requests triggered a response from Azure Sentinel and triggered a playbook. Now, they all came from different environments and they had different ways of doing things, but each one of those different requests came in and they ran that through. And the requests went in a 1 minute frame. And in the case of that 3-minute outcome, we had every single one of those requests either blocked or at least assessed. Assessed, and the next function came on. And the organizer of that particular environment popped up and said, okay, and here's a picture, and he had a little camera and showed it onto his phone of the 16 alerts that came through out of the back of it with actions that he had to actually perform. I did ask for that so I could use it for customers, and he went, no, it'll cost you quite a bit in the back end, because not all of it was Office 365 based or Azure based rules. Examples of playbooks that you could utilize. So incident management can be something you look at. So assigning the incidents to an analyst, as you saw previously, you had ServiceNow integration. I think that's still in preview, I haven't checked. So it can open a ticket in the ServiceNow or Jira or other systems that you're actually running, as long as it's got an API interface. You can keep the incident up to date by integrating into those service tickets, or you could post it in Teams or even Slack. If you're going to a developer to sort out something, there's a number of different things where a playbook can actually interact with them. It doesn't have to be the only playbook running, so a playbook can kick off another playbook. That's always possible if need to happen, so that you can actually manage things in separate streams and have multiple streams running at the same time. Enrichment, so looking for geo for an IP, for instance, as we put an example here, and it can trigger Defender ATPs, and send validations, so it can kick off that enrichment of an investigation rather than just the one email going out because we've had a problem, please come and look at it. No, it's not just found a problem, we're actually giving you some of that information. And on the remediation side of things, doing things for us. So as we saw on the previous picture, screenshot, that blocking an IP address, blocking a user access, utilizing conditional access to isolate machines, anything that basically you could do via a script into an API or interacting with that API, then you will be able to kick off from a playbook. And that's the key thing, that's anything that's available and you would normally get a security person or a support person to actually enact that response, you could potentially get the playbook to do it for you, freeing up that person to be able to do other tasks. Now, there's a number of things that are since we had public preview middle of last year. So we've got 3P and more Microsoft data connectors. Defender ATP is coming now. 100 plus, well, there's more than 200 plus built-in detection types now that are rule-based and machine learning based. You've got the investigative graph and entities that have come on since, and they've actually been delivered since public preview, which is great. Support information is there. embedded Azure notebooks available, GitHub integration, that is key, URL detonation, they've all come since and they've been fully delivered into GA. Now there are some things that are currently en route, like I mentioned about the building your own ML models, that's en route currently. Entity pages, they're coming in, and built-in detections. I think that's going to be a consistent flow of new built-in detections, rule-based, and that will come from places like GitHub, from customers that are building solutions, and then adding to the capabilities that are available from everybody. To the end of this, so you have, if you don't already have an Azure environment to utilize, we're suggesting that you go out and you get yourself an Azure trial, talk to your account manager at Bytes, and have access to that extreme area. Certainly if you're using Office 365 at the moment, it's a simple process to fire up a Sentinel instance and then connect to those data sources. I will say, if you're looking to utilize the Office 365 data and the Azure AD data, you will need to be a global administrator of those environments in order to pull the data and create that Sentinel instance. That doesn't mean you need to be an administrator in order to look at that data and interact with Sentinel later on, but you do need to be one to actually create that instance and create that instigation of the threat analysis sitting there. So I zipped through that quite quickly, and I'm amazed I got it down to 40 minutes. Are there any questions from the team group?
Thanks, Andy. I will just have a look.
Hopefully I didn't talk too quickly for everybody.
No, I think the pace was good. So we did have someone who asked a question fairly early on, just asking how long are the Office 365 activity logs kept in Azure Sentinel Log Analytics workspace for?
Well, that depends on how long you want to keep it. You can actually manipulate how long you would like to keep them for. By standard, because they're streaming them through, they are not stored for any longer than 30 days, I think it is now. Because that's the amount of data that's actually available out of Office 365. Now we can challenge Microsoft. They are changing their ideas. Azure Sentinel is in its infancy at the moment, and they will be looking at, obviously, the sheer volume of data that's coming through is quite extreme. So if you look at Azure AD information, that sometimes is not available for more than 7 days. But you can manipulate how long you would like to store data for in the back end in log analytics. So if you want to keep it longer, you can. You just have to manipulate it. And if you want to talk to us about how to do that, we can run sessions on how to do that later.
Great. Someone else has asked, is there a way to test out the Azure Sentinel configuration by simulating an attack?
Well, as we suggested earlier, that Microsoft have simulated attacks before. I haven't actually seen a simulation service for Sentinel yet. That doesn't mean that Microsoft don't have one that we can utilize. There's certainly videos and capabilities to look through an attack as it's happening. But believe me, when you hook it up into your Office 365 environment, you will see data flowing through quite quickly. And it will be all manner of data. Like I said, and I showed you earlier, there's sort of 300 odd billion notices that will come out of Office 365. We had a customer of ours, to give you an example of how much data does flow through, customer of ours that plugged Office 365 and the log capabilities into their on-premise SIEM tool. They very quickly ran out of storage space for all the data that was flowing through, which gives you an idea of how much that Microsoft are pulling through data-wise and all those actions, and to be able to look at them, analyze them, and manipulate them later.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, if there are any other questions, you can obviously email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk, or you can reach out to your Bytes account manager. There will be a feedback form that will just pop up when you leave the webinar. As I said earlier, we really do appreciate your feedback. It's just a couple of questions on there. So if you have time, then that's great. And then we can send you a copy of the recording later today or tomorrow. If you are interested in anything you've heard today, again, you can speak to your Bytes account manager, or if you wanted a sort of one-to-one engagement, one-to-one session where we could focus in more around what you've heard today, then put that in the feedback form as well, and then we can arrange that. So thank you, Andy, for your time, and thank you
Right.
everybody for joining us today.
Cool.
Thanks, Andy.
No problems.